a prisoner. Hendon forced back a smile, and bent down and whispered in the king's ear, "Softly, softly, my prince, wag thy tongue warily. Nay, suffer it not to wag at all. Trust in me, all shall go well in the end." Then he added to himself, "Sir Miles, bless me, I had totally forgot I was a knight. Lord, how marvellous a thing it is, the grip his memory doth take upon his quaint and crazy fancies. An empty and foolish title is mine, and yet it is something to have deserved it. For I think it is more honor to be held worthy to be a spectre knight in his kingdom of dreams and shadows, than to be held base enough to be an earl in some of the real kingdoms of this world." The crowd fell apart to admit a constable, who approached and was about to lay his hand upon the king's shoulder, when Hendon said, "Gently, good friend, withhold your hand. He shall go peaceably. I am responsible for that. Lead on, we will follow." The officer led, with the woman and her bundle. Miles and the king followed after, with the crowd at their heels. The king was inclined to rebel, but Hendon said to him in a low voice, "Reflect, sire. Your laws are the wholesome breath of your own royalty. Shall their source resist them, yet require the branches to respect them? Apparently one of these laws has been broken. When the king is on his throne again, can it ever grieve him to remember that when he was seemingly a private person, he loyally thanked the king and the citizen and submitted to its authority? Thou art right, say no more. Thou shalt see that whatsoever the King of England requires a subject to suffer under the law, he will himself suffer while he holdeth the station of a subject." When the woman was called upon to testify before the justice of the peace, she swore that the small prisoner at the bar was the person who had committed the theft. There was none able to show the contrary, so the king stood convicted. The bundle was now unrolled, and when the contents proved to be a plump, little-dressed pig, the judge looked troubled, whilst Hendon turned pale, and his body was thrilled with an electric shiver of dismay. But the king remained unmoved, protected by his ignorance. The judge meditated, during an ominous pause, then turned to the woman with the question, "What dost thou hold this property to be worth?" The woman curtsied and replied, 3 shillings and 8 pence, your worship. I could not abate a penny and set forth the value honestly." The judge glanced around uncomfortably upon the crowd, then nodded to the constable and said, "Clear the court and close the doors." It was done. None remained but the 2 officials, the accused, the accuser, and Miles Hendon. This latter was rigid and colorless, and on his forehead big drops of cold sweat gathered, broke and blended together, and trickled down his face. The judge turned to the woman again, and said in a compassionate voice, "'Tis a poor ignorant lad, and mayhap was driven hard by hunger, for these be grievous times for the unfortunate. Mark you, he hath not an evil face, but when hunger driveth. Good woman, dost know that when one steals a thing above the value of 13 pence halfpenny, the law saith he shall hang for it?" The little king started, wide-eyed with consternation, but controlled himself and held his peace. But not so the woman. She sprang to her feet, shaking with fright, and cried out, "Oh, good lack, what have I done? God a mercy, I would not hang the poor thing for the whole world. Save me from this, your worship. What shall I do? What can I do?" The justice maintained his judicial composure, and simply said, "Doubtless it is allowable to revise the value, since it is not yet writ upon the record." Then in God's name call the pig 8 pence, and heaven bless the day that freed my conscience of this awesome thing. Miles Hendon forgot all decorum in his delight, and surprised the king and wounded his dignity by throwing his arms around him and hugging him. The woman made her grateful adieu and started away with their pig, and when the constable opened the door for her, he followed her out into the narrow hall. The justice proceeded to write in his record book. Hendon, always alert, thought he would like to know why the officer followed the woman out, So he slipped softly into the dusky hall and listened. He heard a conversation to this effect: "It is a fat pig, and promises good eating. I will buy it of thee. Here is the 8 pence. 8 pence indeed! Thou'lt do no such thing. It cost me 3 shillings and 8 pence. Good honest coin of the last reign. That old Harry that's just dead ne'er touched or tampered with. A fig for thy 8 pence. Stands the wind in that quarter? Thou wast under oath, and so swore falsely when thou saidst value was 8 pence. Come straightway back with me before his worship, and answer for the crime, and then the lad will hang." "There, there, dear heart, say no more. I am content. Give me the 8 pence, and hold thy peace about the matter." The woman went off crying. Hendon slipped back into the courtroom, and the constable presently followed, after hiding his prize in some convenient place. The judge wrote a while longer, then read the king a wise and kindly lecture, and sentenced him to a short imprisonment in the common jail, to be followed by a public flogging. The astounded king opened his mouth, and was probably going to order the good judge to be beheaded on the spot, but he caught a warning sign from Hendon, and succeeded in closing his mouth again before he lost anything out of it. Hendon took him by the hand now, made reverence to the justice, and the two departed in the wake of the constable toward the jail. The moment the street was reached, the inflamed monarch halted, snatched away his hand, and exclaimed, "Idiot, dost imagine I will enter a common jail alive?" Hendon bent down and said, somewhat sharply, "Will you trust me? Peace, and forbear to worsen our chances with dangerous speech. What God wills will happen. Thou canst not hurry it. Thou canst not alter it. Therefore wait and be patient. 'Twill be time enow to rail or rejoice when what is to happen has happened." End of chapter 23. Chapter 24. The Escape. The short winter day was nearly ended. The streets were deserted, save for a few random stragglers, and these hurried straight along, with the intent look of people who were only anxious to accomplish their errands as quickly as possible, and then snugly house themselves from the rising wind and the gathering twilight. They looked neither to the right nor the left. They paid no attention to our party. They did not even seem to see them. Edward VI wondered if the spectacle of a king on his way to jail had ever encountered such marvelous indifference before. By and by the constable arrived at a deserted market square, and proceeded to cross it. When he had reached the middle of it, Hendon laid his hand upon his arm, and said in a low voice, "Bide a moment, good sir. There is none in hearing, and I would say a word to thee." "My duty forbids it, sir. Prithee hinder me not. The night comes on." "Stay, nevertheless, for the matter concerns thee nearly. Turn thy back a moment, and seem not to see. Let this poor lad escape." "This to me, sir. I arrest thee, and nay, be not too hasty. See thou be careful, and commit no foolish error." Then he shut his voice down to a whisper, and said in the man's ear, "The pig thou hast purchased for 8 pence may cost thee thy neck, man." The poor constable, taken by surprise, was speechless at first, then found his tongue and fell to blustering and threatening. But Hendon was tranquil, and waited with patience till his breath was spent, then said, "I have a liking to thee, friend, and would not willingly see thee come to harm. Observe, I heard it all, every word. I will prove it to thee." Then he repeated the conversation which the officer and the woman had had together in the hall, word for word, and ended with, "There, have I set it forth correctly? Should not I be able to set it forth correctly before the judge, if occasion required?" The man was dumb with fear and distress for a moment. Then he rallied, and said with forced lightness, "'Tis making a mighty matter, indeed, out of a jest. But I plagued the woman for mine amusement." "Kept you the woman's pig for amusement?" The man answered sharply, "Naught else, good sir. I tell thee 'twas but a jest." "I do begin to believe thee," said Hendon. with a perplexing mixture of mockery and half-conviction in his tone. "But tarry thou here a moment, whilst I run and ask his worship." For Nathless, he being a man experienced in law, in jests, he was moving away, still talking. The constable hesitated, fidgeted, spat out an oath or two, then cried out, "Hold, hold, good sir, prithee wait a little, the judge. Why, man, he hath no more sympathy with a jest than he hath a dead corpse. Come, and we will speak further. Odds body, I seem to be an evil case, and all for an innocent and thoughtless pleasantry. I am a man of family, and my wife and little ones. List to reason, good your worship, what wouldst thou of me? Only that thou be blind and dumb and paralytic, whilst one may count 100,000, counting slowly," said Hendon, with the expression of a man who asks but a reasonable favor, and that a very little one. "It is my destruction," said the constable despairingly. "Ah, be reasonable, good sir. Only look at this matter, on all its sides, and see how mere a jest it is, how manifestly and how plainly it is so. And even if one granted it were not a jest, it is a fault so small that even the grimmest penalty it could call forth would be but a rebuke and warning from the judge's lips." Hendon replied with a solemnity which chilled the air about him. "This jest of thine hath a name in law. Wot you know what it is?" "I knew it not. Peradventure I have been unwise. I never dreamed it had a name. Ah, sweet heaven, I thought it was original." "Yes, it hath a name. In the law this crime is called non compos mentis lex calionis sic transit gloria mundi." "Oh, my God!" "And the penalty is death." "God be merciful to me a sinner." "By advantage taken of one in fault, in dire peril, and at thy mercy, thou hast seized goods worth above 13 pence halfpenny, paying but a trifle for the same. And this, in the eye of the law, is constructive barratry, misprison of treason, malfeasance in office, ad hominem expurgatus in statu quo, and the penalty is death by the halter, without ransom, commutation, or benefit of clergy. Bear me up, sweet sir, my legs do fail me. Be thou merciful. Spare me this doom, and I will turn my back and see not that shall happen." "Good. Now thou'rt wise and reasonable, and thou'lt restore the pig?" I will indeed, nor ever touch another, though heaven send it and an archangel fetch it. Go, I am blind for thy sake, I see nothing. I will say thou didst break in and wrest the prisoner from my hands by force. It is but a crazy ancient door. I will batter it down myself betwixt midnight and the morning. Do it, good soul, no harm will come of it. The judge hath a loving charity for this poor lad, and will shed no tears and break no jailer's bones for his escape. End of chapter 24.